Good morning. Today is October 1st, and you're listening to the greatest love story taken from Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 3, where God said, I have loved thee with an everlasting love. If you have members within your household, would you please invite them to join with us? And while you're doing that, we'll be sharing a few updates. Now, we've been studying the background of a gospel song, and one of the things I would like to do is there were 6 stanzas, and we spoke on the subject of heaven, and then we eased into this gospel song, but we covered 2 stanzas, and there's 6, and so I would like to cover 2 more today, and then the final 2 next Sunday, because it is such great in depth that I do not want us to miss anything. And then following that, we'll pick back up with Abraham and Abimelech. Now, Abimelech was a very, very colorful character. And after his first encounter with God, I think you'll see a little bit of change in Abimelech. And so we're looking forward to these programs. And then at some point in the near future, I would like for us to study the subject of angels. Now, angels are part of God's creation. We're not to worship them, but they're the cherubims and the seraphims. And when I get to heaven, in addition to worshiping the Godhead three, I like to get to know them as well as being reunited with my righteous loved ones, my classmates, my friends, and then also speak to some Bible characters. Those are some of the things that I look forward to in heaven, and I am determined that nothing is going to stop me from going to heaven, and whatever happens in my life, I just let it strengthen me, and I become stronger and stronger in the Lord. And in most anything where people call bad, I call challenging, because I can generally pull out any good thing out of something and let the rest put beneath my feet, and I keep my eyes focused on heaven and serving the Godhead three. And so I challenge you this day that you would please do the same as well. Now, one of the things that I would like to mention is this past Wednesday was my sister's birthday on September the 27th, and my mom's birthday would be October the 3rd, which is this coming Tuesday. And so I would like to wish, on behalf of our family, a happy heavenly birthday. And so our scripture of the week is taken from Deuteronomy 33 and verse 27. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And so as we think about Joseph Scriven, there was a lot of background that we gave about him, and I would like to review this for just a moment for those who may have missed it, and for our new listeners, is that Joseph Scriven became engaged to a beautiful young lady, and the night before they were to be married, she drowned. And so Joseph Scriven, rather than becoming bitter, he turned toward his friend Jesus Christ, and he let it lift him up. And so Joseph Scriven had wanted to join the British Army and follow in his dad's footsteps, but because of poor health, he was forced out, and so he became a teacher. And not long thereafter, he moved from Ireland to Port Hope, Canada. And so there's a lot to be said there that we'll get to in just a moment. But Joseph Scriven was one that loved God. He put his faith in him, and it was a total faith that he was putting in God, a lesson that we can all learn from Joseph Scriven. And so what Joseph did was that he became engaged to another lady, and her first name was Eliza. And so as they were engaged, shortly before they were to be married, she became sick and she died of pneumonia. And yet once again, Joseph Scriven turned toward his friend Jesus Christ. And so he did not let that cause him to become bitter, but rather he leaned upon the Godhead three to see him through this terrible ordeal. And so it was at that point in time that Joseph took a vow of poverty. He sold everything that he had, he gave to the poor, and he also gave his very clothes to those that were in need, and he gave of his time to help those that were destitute and those that were physically handicapped. He would physically work for them so that they would not have to deal with it themselves, being unable to do so. And so Joseph Scriven became known as the Good Samaritan of Port Hope. And I can easily see the reasoning behind that. And one time, Joseph Scriven was walking along and he was joyful, he was happy, he had a saw in his hands. And one of the businessmen said, I would like to hire this young man to cut firewood for this winter. And the other businessman said he would not accept your offer because he only helps the destitute and those who are physically handicapped and unable to help themselves. And so as Joseph Scriven was living, his wife, his mother became sick, and he was unable to have the funds to go see her, but that did not stop him. He wrote something that was to be comforting to her, and so then Joseph Scriven himself became sick, and so one of his friends came to see him, and as he took a look, he saw the scribbling of something on a sheet of paper. He picked it up and he read it, and he said, who wrote these beautiful words? And so Joseph Scriven looked at him with a smile on his face, and he said, the Lord and I. And you notice how that he gave God the credit. And that is something that you and I should do, is that God has given us abilities and talents, and whenever we use those things, we should not puff our chest out in pride, but we should always give God the honor, the praise, and the glory, because to do otherwise would be robbing God. And I, for one, am not going to do that. Anything that I do that is good, I say that is God-centered, that is God leading me. And anything that I do is bad, I take it on myself and I take full responsibility for that. And I try to make things right with my fellow man and with God. And if it's a secret sin, then I go secretly to God in prayer and make things right for him. But I'm just so determined to go to heaven, and I hope that you'll join with me and we shall make that march together. Now, as Joseph Scriven, as his mother lay sick,